Cement delivery to the airport terminal in Zherbai Quarries. Hello there everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of SnowRunner here at Opafed Gaming. I am the Opafed. We are driving a Western Star 6900 TwinSteer, and we're just leaving the garage here in Zherbai Quarries, which is the only map in the Almaty region. We're working on the Risen from the Rubble task, which is part of the Zherbai District Mayor's Office contract. We got to pick up 4 pallets of cement, drop them on the back of this truck, and then drive them out to the airport terminal to be delivered. And hopefully we can get that airport up and rolling pretty quick here. Now, we haven't driven the TwinSteer for a little while, mainly because it's such a long truck with such a long frame and can hold 4 cargo slots. We always try to make sure that wherever we do use it in a contract or a task, that the roads are fairly straight and there isn't a lot of tight turns to go through or around or what have you, because of the size of the truck, including things like this little detour, which is not really a problem because it's fairly straight. Although I do remember here, once upon a time I went through here and I cut the corner here going back up out of it a little tight, and I ran up on the rocks on the left hand side and ended up flipping my truck. So lesson well learned, and now I go a little bit wider and I try to make sure that I keep the truck as level as possible, which isn't always easy to do. Now, we are right here at the cement factory, and probably the best way to get these pallets of cement is just to drive straight in, load them up, and then back straight out again. Because as you can see, there's not a lot of room inside here, especially with that hole being dug up with some water issue right in the middle of the turnaround. So we're just gonna load her up, and then we're just going to slowly back it out of here. That, I think, would probably be the best thing to do. Now, this truck is a fairly, I like it. It's a fairly nice truck to drive. It sways a little bit, but if you have a low load on it, like the cement here, it really pushes the force down. It's a lot of weight, that's for sure, and you will notice it when you drive with that kind of weight on the back. But it pushes the force of the weight straight down with gravity, and it keeps the truck from swaying so much. Now, if you had something that was a little bit higher, of course that weight is going to move from side to side, especially when you go through little holes or over rocks, and it amplifies when you go over a rock, because it really tries to help pull your truck over when you're going over one rock on one side. So you want to try not to do that. Any turn that you have to take, you want to try and take it as wide as possible because of the off track. You don't want to get the rear end of the truck stuck against a bunch of rocks or a railing or something, that because you didn't take the corner wide enough. So keep that in mind when you're driving a truck with as long of a wheelbase as this one's got. Oh, come on. Let's go, boys. We can pull out of that. That's just one minor little difficulty. We got a few harder ones coming up ahead, I can tell you that right now. We are driving the same old main artery in Zherbai Quarries, which is this paved road, and it runs through the main section of the map, but you do eventually have to leave it to be able to get to where you got to go. But in the meantime, it makes for a nice easy drive to get partially there. Now, anybody that's been watching my videos will recognize this road, but don't let that mistake you, because there's some tough spots coming up. You can drive the same track with a 2-slot cargo truck or a 4-slot and have completely different experiences. So stick around for what could be a little bit different than normal. Now, we are also working in I believe that there's only 2 contracts on this map, and we are into one of them. And when you're doing any tasks in a contract, not always, but sometimes you get some really cool cutscenes at the end of the task. So I hope you stick around for that. This video is not too long, so hopefully you'll be able to make it to the end and see the task of me trying to revive the airport, which hopefully will give us a little bit of a cutscene at the end of this particular task. Now, as we're coming up here around the corner here, we've got that same old little detour by the warehouse coming up, where we have to kind of snake around it a little bit, but there again, not much of a problem. This part of the task is kind of like your Sunday morning drive. You're just trying to get from point A to point B, and we can do it with one truck hauling 4 cargo slots, or we could have done it twice with a truck that only holds 2 each. So I thought I'd go the easier route and do it in one shot and see if we can accomplish that. Now here we go around that little detour, like I said, by the warehouse, and just up ahead is the fuel station on the left hand side, and the OPAFED, never being one to want to pass up a fuel station, will stop in and get whatever fuel we need. Well, we didn't use that much, not quite 80 liters, just under. But like I always like to preach, you never know what's happening or where you're going or what's going to happen next. So let's keep the tank topped up as high as we can for the time being. So we're just going to roll in here, fill her up. See, we're down to 80 liters now, or down 80 liters, not down 2. And we're going to push the time ahead so that we've got some daylight, and let's move on, boys, because we're probably about, well, almost halfway there. It's just that this second half is a little bit of a tougher go. There's a couple of detours that we got to take into consideration that are not quite as easy as driving on paved road. So, and like I said, you know, the truck being such a long truck, you don't want to run over any rocks that'll lift your truck up on one side, which becomes a real problem with a truck like this as compared to a shorter one. But we will deal with that if and when it happens. There's no point in worrying about something that might not even happen. So we just got to go and pull the detour around the city, because they're still working on the road apparently, and that's not going to be fixed for a while. So we're going to pull the detour around it, and we're going to get back up on the road here again and follow along. But we got to turn off as soon as we get on this road here. We're going to be turning off right just up ahead. Now, we're not into the dirt yet, we're not into the hard part yet, but we're coming up to sections where you got to keep things under consideration. When you're there again, I keep going back to how long the truck is, and when you're driving a truck this long, when you go around corners, you got to keep that into consideration with the off track. So you stay a little bit wide on the right hand side. Well, this is not bad. This is just a sweeping curve, which is nothing. But this next one coming up here, I like to try and start on the left-hand side of the road here, so I can line it up with the guardrail and go right up close to the guardrail until I think the rear end of the truck will pass the rock, and then I cut in so that I can keep the rear end of the truck on the left-hand side of the road, so that I can easier manage to maneuver onto the bridge over here. If I was over a little bit too far to the right hand side, I might not be able to make this turn, but this time it seems to go pretty easy. That's not bad. That's just keeping an eye on the off track in the back end of the truck. But over here we got a little bit of a detour through some mud, water, and boulders, and it starts to get a little bit more challenging as we get closer to the airport terminal. It doesn't look too bad, but you do have to be careful of the boulders in the water there. Make sure that when you do go over them, when you attack anything like this, go slowly. Because if you go slowly, you can back up, readjust the truck, or it'll slowly glide over top of a rock. Whereas if you would go a little bit faster, you might hit that rock and bounce the truck and flip it. You never know. So going slow is definitely the right thing to do especially with the Western Star. So As we're coming up the road here, you'll see that our Fem 37AT, I believe is the numbers. It's still parked there from a previous job, and there again, like I always keep saying, just leave your truck where you finished your job. Now, if we were running low on fuel for one reason or another, we could get fuel from him. Now, he's also a 4-slot cargo truck. However, he's got the articulating front head on him, and some of these here detours might be a little tough. The one we went through, not bad, but there's one coming up that might be a little tough for this truck. So we're going to stick with the Western Star. And we're getting pretty close now. As you can see, the little black arrow in the yellow diamond has appeared on the screen, meaning that we're getting close to where we got to be. Now, this is just a little up and down. Just a little bit of a washout on the road here. Not really an issue, but there again, as you can see, the truck likes to sway back and forth from side to side, and when you sit there playing it, you got your controller in your hand and you're turning your controller like a steering wheel, trying to keep him going straight. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it does, and this time it did. We're keeping it straight, and we've got one more little trouble area to go through before we get to the airport, and that trouble area is right over here. Now, I like to try and go a little bit further before I turn into it, and turn into it a little bit of a straighter line, just like that, thereby hopefully keeping the truck a little bit more level from side to side. Now, there's a rock up ahead there in the middle of the area there, right in front of us, and I've gone over many different ways, and I found that if you go to the right of it, because the right side of the rock is fairly flat, but the part on the left really juts up, and it really lifts your truck up. So if you can avoid that highest part of that boulder there, then you'll be okay. And then here, this is just a little bit of a muddy area, but there again, like I've mentioned before, the more times you go back and forth through a muddy area, the worse it's going to get. The mud's going to get deeper, and it's going to get harder to pass through here. And this is tough enough as it is, because we got to climb out of here, and then we got to try and turn and still make that little bridge without knocking the railing off or getting stuck or caught on it, which is always a tough jaunt here, especially when you try to climb up and it really tips you to one side. So you just go slow, and I think we're just gonna make it. We're just scraping by the edge of the handle there. We made her through. Awesome, absolutely awesome. What a fantastic delivery. I love driving this truck once in a while. It gives you some different and new challenges rather than always driving the same truck. So you do want to try out a different vehicle every once in a while. Anyhow, as it turns out, we end up finding out that this is only stage 1 of this particular task. So I hope you come back for stage 2, where we finish the contract, or this part of the contract anyhow. Oh, didn't quite have enough room to get by there. Anyhow, you've been running over paved roads and through a little bit of mud and water with me, the Opafet, delivering cement to the airport terminal. I hope you have a great day.